Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of League Chat with the Stat. Thank you for joining me on another great episode this week, covering all things State of Origin 2. Now, just before we start, thinking of those that are affected by the lockdown this week. For those in Sydney, thinking about you guys, as most of us are now locked down for the next 2 weeks. I know that Brisbane's gone into a 3-day snap lockdown as well, and the country's in a bit of a fuss at the moment. So just thinking about all those to stay safe during this period of time as we experience another lockdown. Guys, getting straight into it. State of Origin 2, the New South Wales retain the series, bring the Shield back. New South Wales 26 defeating Queensland 0. And this game just proved just how dominant the Blues really were. The Queensland started off really well. I thought, the first 5 to 10 minutes was a very dominant period for Queensland. It was very different to the first game, where it was a very weak first 5-10 minutes from the Maroons. But then that was it for the Maroons. It was just after that 10 minutes they were gassed. And I thought it really brought the opportunity for Latrell to really step up in those moments. I thought he was very lucky to miss out on man of the match. Latrell played a phenomenal part, especially in that first half. Firstly, raking the ball off Kyle Felt, which led to the try. And then obviously, not long after, going for that 80-metre intercept and scoring that try to get New South Wales out to a 12-0 lead. Now, a lot of records were broken. First things first, New South Wales currently hold the lead against Queensland 76 points to 6 in 2 games. Which says a lot about New South Wales and says a lot more about Queensland. Another thing, first time in Suncorp Stadium that Queensland were held to 0, which is Queensland's spiritual ground, and a very disappointing result for Queensland. I just want to talk a bit about New South Wales first. Like I mentioned earlier, Latrell Mitchell, obviously phenomenal in that first half. Another thing he did was, when the ball was kicked into touch, as it was heading to the dead ball line, the Valentine tries to recover in the field of play. Latrell was the one out there taking him back, which again just showed just how phenomenal Latrell has been in Origin. And just how dominant he's been over Dan Gagai and his wing partner there in Kyle Felt. Now with Queensland, they were really poor again. No direction. Munster and Cherry Evans failed to lift the side. The only forward there that was really commendable was Christian Welch. He made about 15 runs, 133 metres, 35 tackles. Was the only one that really made an impact. The rest barely scraped. Some of them scraped 100 metres. Some didn't even get anywhere near. But it was just a very, very poor showing from Queensland. Yeah, they had a few people missing, and definitely understandable. However, you're meant to adapt with what you've got. 24 hours prior, Reece Walsh had to pull out due to hamstring injury, and Ronaldo Militado. Obviously, for those that weren't aware, there was an eligibility issue with Ronaldo Militado, which is why he missed out on his debut. So Xavier Coates was rushed in from Queensland. So the Queensland came out and said that if you're going to bring in a player to cover Ronaldo Militado, he has to be from one of the Queensland clubs, because obviously Sydney were in a lockdown for 2 weeks. Couldn't bring anyone from Sydney to fly over to Queensland on game day. So Xavier Coates got rushed back into the side. Turned out with the eligibility criteria was that Ronaldo Militado, because he signed the paperwork and he had come to Queensland at the age of 14 as opposed to 13, as the rules state, he could not represent Queensland, even though he's played under 16s, 18s and 20s for him. So it was a very big disruption for Queensland, a day off. Now, the poor thing from Queensland was, on the field they were garbage, but off the field they were just as poor. Paul Green, the press conference with him and Cherry Evans, that 7-minute press conference was the biggest laugh and the biggest joke of a press conference I've ever watched. Paul Green coming out and saying that the Militado situation was really affecting the squad. It happened on game day, and Militado's position on the wing isn't one that is like a spine position. They can get someone else to fill in on the wing. Now, Xavier Coates obviously came in with extremely limited preparation, and Adokar scored 2 tries on his wing. But to go out and blame things that happened that were beyond your control, such as the Militado situation, is very poor from a coach. Cherry Evans as well, not really owning up and saying, we were poor and it was our fault, we need to be better. I thought that was very disgusting from him as well. Everything just went wrong for them, but everything went right for New South Wales. Tedesco, 2 try assists, 212 metres, Thor 23 runs, 220 metres. Latrell busy, almost 200 metres as well. The halves, again, Luai Cleary, Cleary playing with a busted shoulder for 70 minutes of the game, and Luai just doing what he did best and supporting Latrell on that left-hand side. Tariq Sims, another barnstorming effort from him. He was really good. Payne Haas, Junior Paulo. There wasn't anyone that I would have said, didn't play that well. Everyone stepped up. Even off the bench, Angus Crichton played 41 minutes and made 130 metres. So there was a lot to take for New South Wales. It's not over though. We still need to get Game 3 in, well, maybe not Sydney. I'm hearing it could be anywhere in the bush, such as, Newcastle. Originally Newcastle, but then hearing the bush, like, maybe Bathurst or Toowoomba or Mudgee, one of those bush stadiums there. So that was something they're trying to push as of tonight. But the problem I have with Queensland is they just came up with a lot of excuses. New South Wales went through that stage where they came up with a lot of excuses for their performances, and we tried to shuffle our side and change everyone. And the excuse that Paul Green used in the first game was, we used very limited preparation. They had a week and a half to prepare, which I thought was very poor. And then in the second game was, they just decided to talk about the whole Militado situation, which had no effect on the game. Even if Militado was there, it would have still been 26-0. Could have been more, could have been a bit less, but New South Wales still would have won. It wouldn't have changed the result that heavily. And look, as I said, I mentioned in the State of Origin 1 review where Wayne Bennett needs to come back in and fix the whole thing up. I don't think he will. And I think that Queensland and Rugby League are going to stick with Paul Green to coach it out. There's going to be a very tough couple of years for Queensland if that's going to be the case. But yeah, the leaders needed to step up and they didn't. Again, like I mentioned, Munster and Cherry Evans were poor. Walsh was the only good one. Fodawaker was very quiet up front. Molo on debut did what he could, but again, nothing special. Fast-swimmer Aoi was poor, missed a lot of tackles. Fafita, stages where he was okay, but nothing to really break the game with. McCulloch did what he could from dummy half. Hunt tried to make an impact, but again, nothing special from him. Gagai got owned once again in the centres. So it was just a very, very dominant performance from New South Wales again. But they want to make it 3 from 3 and they want a clean sweep. It'll be first time to see. It was so good for Brad Fittler, who played in a side that clean sweep Queensland back in his heyday, to now be coaching them and potentially have an opportunity to clean sweep Queensland as well. They'll be doing that without Nathan Cleary, who's been ruled out with a shoulder injury. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly how they go with that and what they do exactly and how they proceed with going through all of that. But those are the main things to take from State of Origin 2. It's good to see New South Wales get one up again and bring the Shield home. And looking forward to Game 3 and hopefully getting that clean sweep in and really just decimating Queensland, just putting it in that little bit more. Going to news around the NRL world, and there's a lot to go through from the last week or so. So Joel Thompson, as you guys know, he played for Manly, played for Canberra, played for Dragons, announced his retirement, and also played for Manly as well. Announced his retirement from the game, heading back a year early from St Helens. So mate, all the best in retirement, and congratulations on a great career. The Sharks have released Chad Townsend from the remainder of his contract, and he has signed with the Warriors for the remainder of the season before he heads over to the Cowboys on a 3-year deal in 2022. Interesting signing, this one. Warriors were desperate for a half, with Shino Harris-Tavita busting his peg being out for the year. Turns out that now Harris-Tavita may be back for 4 to 6 weeks. The pec injury wasn't as serious and doesn't require surgery, which is good news for them. Israel Folau has reached a deal and has finally saw his release from Catalan's Dragons. And he will be available to play Queensland Cup this week. So I know that Clive Palmer there for the Queensland Tigers is obviously paying him about $250,000 a year off of the remainder of this year to play rugby league. Kurt Capewell has looking to sign a 3-year deal with the Broncos. The Broncos have come in with a big offer for $500 a year for 3 years, which is a $1.5 million deal. I believe it'll be a good signing, Kurt Capewell. He's coming from a flawless team at the moment with a great system. Having played in a grand final, can bring that experience to the Broncos. And he's the type of leader that you want around your club, can play 80 minutes, can play centres, can play back row. Would be a very good signing for the Broncos if they can land him. So now Cowboys, who were at 1 point favourites, looks like it'll be Broncos at this stage. The Titans, Bulldogs, Dragons and the Tigers have been linked to Tevita Pangai Jr. Hearing that Tigers and Bulldogs are going to be putting through deals to Tevita Pangai's management at this stage for 2.5-year deals so that they can get him from the mandate of this year and for the next 2 years. So I'm hearing it's mainly between Bulldogs and Tigers. Titans don't have much money in the cap, and the Dragons are just kind of sussing out to see what's happening. So they're not really putting in an offer, and they're not really heavily interested. It's between the Bulldogs and the Tigers at this stage. The Knights have put in interest to sign Dane Gagai for another 3 years. I want to put him on a 3-year deal, so it's between now Knights and Broncos, as Rabbitohs won't be able to afford to keep him on due to salary cap restraints for next year. Dylan Napa, Aaron Schott, Brandon Wakeham, Sione Katoa and Corey Waddell are facing sanctions for going out under lockdown. Two of the players in Katoa and Waddell didn't use the check-in, which made things worse. Vendors is going to be cracking down and looking to put in appropriate punishments for those 5 players for going out when NRL had brought in the lockdown. I think this is very poor from them. I think it's very unprofessional, considering the season we're having, and it just makes things worse. And Bulldogs are going to be debuting another 3 guys this week to kind of fill in the gaps, which they've had to receive exceptions from the NRL for as well. So very disappointing to see that, some of the players here, especially Napa and Wakeham, who are, and even Katoa to an extent, who are a bit more senior than the other 2, very disappointing for them to obviously not follow the NRL's rules and the guidelines that have been put in place. So they'll be on holiday for 14 days. The Bulldogs are yet to train together, which is going to affect them more than it's already affected them all year. So that's just going to make things interesting this week. Patrick Herbert's re-signed with the Titans on a 2-year deal till 2023. Sean Johnson's has actually signed a deal with the Warriors. Now, he was all but signing with the Bulldogs. It took a 5-minute Zoom chat with him, the Warriors management, and his manager to come up with a 2-year deal. The first year is going to be for $450,000 a year, then that next year, and then the year after is going to be $500,000. A phenomenal signing. I think this is very great business and very well done by the Warriors. The Bulldogs were heavily gunning for him and they were about to sign him. Warriors came in with a clutch, and with obviously Townsend moving to the Cowboys next year, and Cody Nikorima looking to leave to Brisbane. Signing someone like Sean Johnson is very pivotal for what they're trying to do, and I think it's a fantastic signing for him to go back home and to finish off his career at the Warriors. The Cowboys have re-signed Jake Granville on a 1-year deal, with the second year in the club's favour, so he'll be going around for another stint, which is good to see. Corey Norman and Ashley Taylor have been linked to the Broncos, and this is more of a rumour, should Cotonia Stags not shift successfully to the 5/8 role, alongside Adam Reynolds next year. Nick Meaney has signed a 2-year deal with the Melbourne Storm. He'll be taking the spot of Nico Hines, kind of that bench utility player. I think it's a good signing for them. Any player that goes to Melbourne, they'll be very successful. Very sad to see him leave. He's been someone in the last 3 years who's been very, very good, very versatile for us, and has been very solid. And he's a champion guy as well, so really sad to see him leave the club. Toby Sexton has re-signed with the Titans on a 3-year deal. One of the young kids coming through for the Titans. With Bulldogs missing out on Sean Johnson, they have been linked to sign Aiden Caesar from Huddersfield Giants. Now, Aiden Caesar has made it very clear for many years that he wants to play for the Bulldogs and wants the chance to represent the club that he grew up in, playing before he left to the Gold Coast. So Bulldogs are now going to start talks with him soon and look to put a deal and organise for next year. Isaac Liu has been offered a 3-year deal by the Gold Coast Titans to kind of fill in for an already very solid pack there. Alongside those 5 players from the Bulldogs, 2 players in Ewan Aiken and Josh Curran have to isolate for 14 days as well. Heading on a flight back from Gold Coast to the Central Coast, there was a person on the flight who apparently had COVID as well. So they now need to isolate for 14 days. They both tested negative to the COVID test, so they don't have COVID, but then you still need to isolate for 14 days. Ben Eichen, already 2 days into the job, has already come in and has announced that TPJ and Matt Lodge won't be going anywhere this year. But again, for monitoring on TPJ, if they get a very enticing offer, they will look to release him. But at this stage, they want to keep them both grounded and just see the year as it is and then deal with anything later they have to in the off-season. And the last bit of news, the Raiders have re-signed Sebastian Chris on a 3-year contract and Xavier Savage, who debuted 2 weeks ago on a 2-year contract there. So that's all the news for around the NRL world at this stage. Let's head to round 16 ins, outs and whereabouts. The Roosters take up on the Storm on Thursday night. Sam Walker returns at halfback after 2 weeks after resting his shoulder against the Panthers. So Lachlan will go back to number 6. Manu go into the centres and Suwali on the extended bench. Sitilu Tumanua comes back to the side and Fletcher Baker goes to the bench. At this stage, Tedesco and Crichton will be backing up from Origin. But I still think if they play or don't play, it might not have a major effect on the result. For the Storm, Jesse Bromwich comes back from an elbow injury and will partner Walsh, who comes back as well in the front row, with Tui Kamikamico going back to the bench and Sofa Solomona suspended. I can say that Harry Grant is out with a hamstring injury. His place is taken by Aaron Booth. And starting in jersey 9 will be Brandon Smith once again this week. And Tom Eisenhuth has been sidelined with the elbow injury, but a ready-made replacement is there with Kenny Bromwich coming back into the side. I want to go Storm by 18. I think it could be a little bit more. I think the way the Storm are going, and they'll build off, having that week off, they'll be build off what they did against the Tigers. So it could be a troubling night for the Roosters. Warriors will be taking on the St. George Dragons. Daniel Zesniak and Chad Townsend have been rushed into the side this week. And RTS will go back into fullback with Reece Walsh out, obviously, due to that hamstring injury. Now, with Aitken and Curran having to isolate for 14 days, Marcelo Montoya will move from the wing to the centres to replace Aitken. And Edward Cossie will come to the side of the wing. And Elisa Katoa will come into the starting side to take the spot of Josh Curran. Wade Egan comes back to the side after a head knock, which sees Tavago go back to the bench, and Tanielo Otukolo go back to the reserves. And Bantia Foa will join the bench with Kane Evans going to the starting side. And Bailey Sivonen will be playing after he copped the head knock in round 15. For the Dragons, Matt Duffy comes back into the side, which sees Tyrell Sloan, the debutant, out of the side. Jack Bird goes from the back row to the centres, and Joe Abu will go out to the wing to take the spot of Michele Ravalawa, who's out for 4 weeks. Josh Kerr will come back into the side in the back row. Paul Vaughan comes to the starting side at prop. Josh Maguire and Torofu Maono, both returning from suspensions, back onto the bench after both being charged from the incident in Magic Round. And the 3 players backing up from Origin, Tarek Sims, Ben Hunt, and Andrew McCulloch. Warriors are missing a couple of players, but do gain very good experience in Townsend and Zelezniak. I'm going to go the Warriors by 4. I think it'll be a very close game, this one. I don't see much in it. And it should be a cracker and a good game, this one, for especially being played back at the Central Coast, and Warriors wanting to bounce back and get a win up there as well. Panthers take on the Eels Friday night. It was probably the game of the round this week. Nathan Cleary is out of the side, as I mentioned, due to that shoulder injury. Scans will confirm whether he'll be out for the season or if he's going to manage the injury, but he's definitely out this week. So Jerome Luai will cover halfback with Matt Burton going in at 5'8", and Tyrone May going to the centres. Dylan Edwards is out. I believe it's another hand or hamstring issue. So Charlie Staines goes to fullback, and Brett Naden will play his first game of the year and take up that spot on the wing. Kikau comes back from a hamstring strain, so Liam Martin will go back to the bench and Spencer Lenu to the reserves. While the other players, To'o, Isaiah and Kurt Capel, have all named to back up. For the Eels, Mike Acevo returns from suspension, taking the spot of Sean Russell, who debuted against the Dogs and scored 2 tries. Nathaniel Roach and Keegan Hipgrave are out of the side, and coming back into the side are Oregon Kafusi and Bryce Cartwright. Even though that Cleary will be missing, we've seen Burden and Luai work in the halves together and work phenomenal as well. I'm still going to go the Panthers. I'm going to go Panthers by 8 just to get that one over the Eagles there. Bulldogs coming up against the Sea Eagles. Many changes here. Like I've already mentioned, there's 5 players are already out. So Corey Allen comes back onto the wing, and he will take the spot of one of the players there. So I can see that Fala Kikamanu will debut in the centres, and Kyle Flanagan will start at 5'8". Adam Elliott is out for 4 to 6 weeks with a cheekbone injury, so Jackson Toppiner will come into the starting side. Like I said, Dylan Napa, Brendan Wakeham, Aaron Shop, Corey Waddell, Sione Katoa, they out for at least the next 2 weeks. So Bailey, Biondo Odo, and Christopher Patolo will debut off the bench as well. Joe Simpson comes back onto the bench. And with Corey Allen coming into the side, it's pushing Nick Meaney into fullback. Tua Katoa will retain his spot. Flanagan back in since that defeat to the Dragons. And the other changes, as already mentioned. For the Sea Eagles, now they're going to be 1 to 17. Jake Trebojevic won't be back to at least round 18 at this stage with that hip injury. Bulldogs haven't trained together yet because of all these issues with COVID. It's going to be pretty simple. Even if they had trained, I think the influence of Tom Trebojevic and Ruben Garrick, especially in the last couple of weeks, was really stepped it up. Is going to play a massive part. And I think the way the Seagulls have been going, they're going to put on a shellacking against us. So definitely bracing for that. I'm guessing another big game from Tom Turbo. So you guys know who to tip, but I'll be going with the Bulldogs by 4. Just because I go for the Bulldogs. Raiders coming up against the Titans, 2 fading teams who like to put up leads and fade. So it's going to be a very interesting clash. Jared Croker returns for the first time in almost 2 months, with Matty Tomoko shifting to the bench. And Ryan Sutton has been named at lock, and Sia Soliola was named on the bench, and Papali and Wyden will back up after playing Origin 2. For the Titans, AJ Brimson comes back to the side to take the spot of Jaden Campbell at fullback, and Corey Thompson's back from injury, replacing Greg Mazu, who's dropping out of the squad. Kevin Proctor returns from a suspension to push Sam Stone from the second row to the extended bench. Bo Firma and Sam Lozone take the spot on the bench, with Mitch Rain and dry wheat bread out of the 21 altogether. And David Fafita, Tino Fasu, Malawi, Moriaki Fodawaker or them to back up for Origin. They're playing in Canberra. I am going to go Canberra. Even though Titans do get a few reinforcements back, I think Canberra will win it at home and they'll do it by 2 points. The Knights come up against the Cowboys. For the Knights, Kalen Ponga finally returns from injury. And Kurt Mann will come back into the centres. Now, Brodie Jones will go back to the interchange with Jack Johns going back to the reserves. And I think Daniel Saifidi is looking to back up for Origin as well. And Cowboys are going 1-17 from their last game against the Sharks. I think we're going to go Knights this side in this game. Knights will be there by 8. I think with return of Ponga and with Pearce and Clifford having a bit more time together in the halves, I think they'll start to gel. And I think I'll go Knights there by 8 points. Broncos come up against the Sharks Sunday 2 o'clock. A host of changes made once again by the Broncos. Katoni Staggs will take the spot of Jesse Arthurs in the centres, so he'll play his first game of the year. Jesse Arthurs will go back to the bench. Jermaine Asako and Corey Oates will come in for Xavier Coates and Sulan Cobo on the wings, which I believe both have been dropped. Excuse me. Tavita Pangai suspended for 3 to 4 weeks. So TC Rabadi will shift to the second row and Thomas Feglau will go from the bench to lock. And Keenan Palacia is taking the spot of John Asiata, who's out for the year with a neck injury. And then another halves pairing, Brodie Croft will come in at halfback with Tyson Gamble going to 5'8", and Carmichael Hunt dropping out of the squad altogether. And for Sharks, they're going 1-17. And they will be the same side that they beat the Cowboys in the last time they met. I'm going to go the Sharks, and I'm going to go Sharks by 14. I think they'll push out the winning streak to 5 games in a row. So we'll just see what happens. The last game of the round, the Tigers are coming up against the Rabbitohs. After that shellacking that the Tigers copped 2 weeks ago, only 3 changes have been made to the side from Maguire. So Adam Dwyer comes back to the side from suspension in the spot of Tommy Talau, who's been dropped. Alex Seyfarth will take the spot of Joe Fingawi in lock, and I'll switch between lock and second row. And Thomas McKaylee will come back into the side with Tom and Money going to the reserves. And for the Rabbitohs, Benji Marshall makes his return to the side. Obviously, having a child 2 weeks ago, he comes back into the team. Jersey 14. Black Tuff will drop to the reserves with Hame Sele promised from the interchange to take the spot of Tavita Totola, who's out for the next 6 to 8 weeks with a knee injury. And Liam Knight will come back into the side. And it looks like Latrell, Gagai, Cook, Arrow, and Murray look like they got to Sunday's game pretty fine. We'll have a week to back up, and we'll be playing this game on Sunday. I'm going to go the Rabbitohs by 20. I just think the Tigers aren't good enough, and I don't think they'll have made a lot of changes and have made enough changes to turn the team around. I think they're going to cop another big loss. Guys, thanks for joining me again. Another episode of League Chat with the Stat. You can catch me on our socials on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. We started to climb up the ranks bit by bit, so we're at 63 subscribers, which is good. So let's try to get a few more subscribers there. You can always get some more hats. We've still got black available and have a lot of the white ones. So I do appreciate your support thus far. Looking to continue selling more merch as time goes on. But again, thanks for your time. Enjoy round 16. Finally good to have the footy back after a standalone Origin weekend. Thank God that's over. But enjoy the footy this week, and we'll see you same time next week. Have a good one, guys. Take care.